Welcome officially to Unconventional. I have been very open and honest about how I feel about delivering this conversation because that's really what it is. This is a big conversation that I want to open with you today and invite you to embark upon a journey. A journey of doing things the way you are actually designed and feel called to do things. Before we really dive in, what I want to open off with is a post that I posted to Instagram the other day that really just sums up the energy of what I want to bring into this session. Suddenly it hit me. The most unconventional thing a woman can do these days is be in her power and to be embodied in her deepest truth and knowing, and to be unapologetic about it and to normalize it. So I'm here to make the unconventional your new standard. We live in a society where we're so happy to normalize the negative. We'll normalize doubt, fear, discomfort, pain, lack, scarcity. We'll normalize things not going to plan. We'll even normalize rejection, failure. But a woman in her power, a woman in the true, unapologetic, absolutely no fucks given frequency of herself, we don't want anything to do with that. You will judge her. You'll project your limitations and shadows upon her. You'll say she's full of herself and only in it for the money. You'll call her greedy, too loud, too much. You'll find every way you possibly can to make her wrong. It's sad and it's disappointing to think that the most unconventional thing a woman can do is simply be in her power. And it's also the greatest and most magnetic thing she can choose for her life. I'm here to normalize unconventional because what you normalize, you actualize. There are so many people in this world who desire big things. And if you're here, it's because you're one of those people. You know that you're here for more. You know that you want more. You know that you don't want to just live that regular, conventional, standard white picket fence life. You have big dreams and big goals. And probably for most of your journey, you feel like you've been kind of following the rules. You know, you've gone out on a limb in different areas and you've done things a bit off the cusp, right? But there's this deeper calling inside you that you just know that you are meant for so much more than where you are currently at. This conversation is huge. And what I want to do, what my intention is with opening this up with you, is to really activate the parts of you that are ready and screaming to lean into this energy of being totally fucking unconventional, totally in your power, and totally unapologetic about it, irrespective of what is going on around you, irrespective of being in the projection field of other people, irrespective of having to deal with the judgment and the negativity of those around you. Because when you are truly in your power, none of that matters. None of it matters because you are so solid in who you are. And this is the biggest problem that I see with women online. And I'm not just talking about business owners. I'm talking about content creators. I'm talking about the career girlies, the corporate women who are climbing up and doing huge things in their career. I'm talking about the mums running families. This conversation extends so far beyond business and it reaches every single little area and wedge of your life. When you stand unapologetically in your power, things shift and they change in a way that you just could not possibly predict. The reason that I have been so hesitant and putting off this conversation is because for me, this honestly feels so big. This conversation to me is so much more than just me putting on a free experience for other people to be a part of. This is more than just me hosting a free masterclass on the internet. This is not a fucking lead magnet for my business. This is not a session where I'm going to tell you a whole story and then go into an hour's long worth of a sales pitch to try and convince you to join something in my world. That is not the vibe around here. My mission is quite literally to empower women to stand in their full power, unapologetic, unwavering, and in their most magnetic selves. And here's the thing, where most of the internet will have you feeling like you need to change who you are and become another version of you that is an energetic match to everything that you desire. I'm unconventional from the beginning because I simply don't believe that. I believe that at the core of you, you are already an energetic match to everything that you desire. Everything that's on your heart. And I know that this sounds so cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. It's cliche because it is truth. Everything that is on your heart was put on your heart for a reason. It's because that is what your soul came here to do. And it's really cool when you sit back and you reflect on your journey of how your goals and your vision and your dreams have actually shifted and changed. For myself, I know when I first embarked in this like world of business, the biggest goal that I had was to earn 5K a month and to be self-employed. That's all I wanted. And I couldn't actually see anything beyond that. And now that I've followed the journey and the twists and the turns and everything that's come with it, now I see women making $1 million a month. And it shows me that the sky really is the limit. When I sit and reflect on my journey of life in general, I used to think that I lived everything very conventionally. I followed the rules. I did all of the things that I was expected to do. I would really align my identity with being this massive people pleaser. And I remember distinctly this dinner that I went to last year. And I was sitting at the table with all of these incredibly successful women in business, women who had made millions and millions of dollars online, like just that powerful with that much momentum happening in their business. And I felt so out of place. I felt so out of place, like I shouldn't be there because I wasn't enough to be at that table because my business wasn't doing anywhere near what anyone else was doing at that table. But what made it worse was when we started having conversations around our journeys, around our lives, around our stories. And here's where it gets really interesting. I quite literally downplayed my story. And I was like, oh, like my story's not that exciting. Like it's very much following the conventional path and, classic white picket fence life. And then, I had a few problems. So I decided to launch this business and like, that's kind of it. That's me. And I sat and recently I sat and really reflected on that. And I was like, my journey has actually been far from conventional. Far from conventional. And yet in the moments I couldn't see it because I was playing into this identity of being a people pleaser who does everything that people expect of her. When actually, when I think about the truth of that, because that is a lot of conditioning from this online space. I'm a mindset coach, right? I am trained to help women through their mindset blocks to reprogram their stories and their limiting beliefs and all of that. But here is something really interesting that I've noticed. There is so much conditioning from this online space that actually has us playing into stories that are not there. And it's because it's so easy to be like, oh, I could tick all those boxes. I could say that I was a people pleaser who really played into what people expected of her. And there is obviously some truth to that. There is truth to me playing into stories of what people expected of me. But the other truth is that I also did a lot of very fucking unconventional things that were not expected of me, that actually there was no pressure around and that weren't planted on me by other people. They were my choice. They were me following my heart's desire, but in the moments I couldn't feel it. And so what I want to do is really take you on a journey of my conventional life and to really show you that there is so much unconvention in the most conventional stories. And my intention with this is so that you can start to look at your story different. Because I believe that we actually all already have these codes within us. Being unconventional, choosing to live life in an unconventional way is quite literally a choice. And it's not just choosing to do things your own way and choosing to, be unconventional, right? It's actually about choosing more. It's about choosing to lead your life the way that you want to lead your life. It's about choosing that nothing is actually out of reach for you and that everything on your heart is literally there for a reason. And it's because it is meant for you in this lifetime. And like those shifts enough, those codes enough, if you just anchor into one thing and it is that you leave this feeling like, holy shit, like everything on my heart is there for a reason and it's because it's already in the trajectory for my life and I just need to keep going, putting one step in front of the other. If you only take that away from this session, that's absolutely perfect. And that honestly makes me so happy. Because from the conditioning in this online space, we literally feel like we have to become someone else in order to have everything that we want. And that is the first untruth that I want to share with you. But really, in me sharing this story is that I want you to see that you already have all of this within you. And that when you start to shift your perspective to the way that you see how things have gone, that is actually where the power is. Because when you shift your perspective on your story and on your journey, it really opens up to the possibility of what can the future be, right? And so what I want to start with is my journey to where I got to and where I am now. And where it actually starts is, I mean, it starts at the beginning of my life, but we're not going back there. Where it really starts is 15, 16-year-old Jamie, who was top of the class, who was destined to go to university, who was really feeling into what do I want to create in my life? What do I want to create? We had just moved, and I will say this was a really tough time in my life. I had grown up in one town for my whole entire life. I had been at one school, well, two schools, obviously, primary school and then high school, but been with the same group of people for my whole schooling career. And at 15 years old, going into grade 11, which in hindsight, now I can agree with this, but everyone said that grade 11 was going to be one of the hardest years because it's a huge transition. And reflecting back, I can absolutely agree that it is so true. Like there is something about the transition between grade 10 and grade 11. And this is obviously talking about Australian years. I'm not exactly sure how that converts to like in America or in other countries, but this is like senior high school basically. And it's a big transition. It's a really different. And right at the end of grade 10, my parents decided, they hadn't like spoken to us at all. There was no like conversation, no preparation around it. At the end of grade 10, my parents announced to me that we would be moving. And we would be moving to a place 7 hours away in the middle of nowhere. I live in Australia, so you can just imagine what the middle of nowhere is here. And that would be that. They'd already chosen my subjects. They'd already planned the whole thing. And that was it. There was no negotiation. There were no options. There was nothing. And so I remember just being just upset about everything. You know, I was losing my whole friendship group. I had been with a boy for, I think, 18 months or something in high school, you know, the whole high school sweetheart puppy love bullshit. And the whole thing just felt like my whole life was being torn apart. We get to this school. It is a humongous school that is so different to anything that I have been involved in. The subjects that I had chosen that were very normal in my old school were all of a sudden not normal. I was one girl in a class full of boys for most of I did straight math science. So yeah, for most of my classes, I was the only girl in that class. And it all just felt so hard. Now, looking back, I can recognize that in these moments, I actually found my own coping mechanisms. I was also very intuitive, but I didn't see it at the time. So I was very much leading with how I felt, leading with what felt good, leading with, you know, taking care of myself and regulating my nervous system, because it was a lot to take on at that time. So many life changes, going into the biggest years of my life, trying to navigate what I wanted to do with the rest of my life and where I wanted to be and how I wanted my life to play out. It all felt like a lot. But like I said, looking back, I can see how intuitive and how I was really leading with my feelings. And so I would go for walks in the afternoon and do my best to try and kindle new friendships, although it's very difficult at those years. And, all of the things, right? I really committed myself to school because I knew that that was my out. That was it. I was only there for 2 years. I was going to knuckle down. I was going to do my thing, and I was going to get into the degree that I wanted. And at that stage, I actually didn't even know what kind of degree I wanted, right? So I'm knuckling down. I'm doing my schoolwork, doing all the things, right? Still found time for fun. I worked 2 jobs all through school to save money because I knew that when I went to university, I would be supporting myself. And at the end, I finished with a very, very good OP. I got into pharmacy at university, and off I went into the big wide world at 17 years old, moving out of home, I think it was like 9 hours away from where we lived, to a new city, to go to university, to support myself, looking for new jobs, making new friendships. Like, it was a really huge transition time. Again, in hindsight, I can see all very heart-led. All very heart-led. It felt right. I cannot explain to you how, out of all of the possible degrees, that's how good my OP was, right? This is not tooting my own horn, it's telling you the reality of the situation. My OP was so good that I could have gotten into any degree that I wanted. And yet I chose pharmacy. And I can sit back and be like, yeah, but I worked in a pharmacy and I was always going to help people. And like, I can make up these stories to fill in those choices. But when I think about it, there wasn't really a lot of trying to explain it or make it make sense. I wanted to become a pharmacist because something felt right in that. It felt like the obvious step. It felt like the thing that I was meant to do. And so that's how I did it. I want to also add here that for some people, this is a very conventional story. And this is how I've overlooked this, right? So many people will be like, you grow up and you're told to go to school and get good grades and go and get a degree and then work your way up the corporate ladder and then buy a house and have a family and do all of the things, right? That's the conventional story. And so up to here, you're probably like, well, this is all very conventional, Jamie. You went to school, you got good grades, you went to university, and we know that you graduated university and became a pharmacist. Very, very conventional. But here's what I didn't tell you. For my family, going to university wasn't conventional. I was the only person in my family, and in my extended family, I will add, this isn't just my immediate family, in my extended family, I was the very first and only person. Now, I think a couple of other people have gone through, but it's still not standard, right? I was the very first person to go into university, to even attempt to do something outside of the norm. Like, the norm in my family was to go and get a job, to leave school, to do a trade, or to get a job. That's the norm, and that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was already going against the grain by going to university. And I just want that to really land, because it's very easy to look at the overall picture of the whole white picket fence story, right? The conditioned story of go to school, go to university, like that sort of thing, right? And think that you just followed a conventional path. But when you really look at your path with nothing else outside of it, and look at what's normal in your life, because here's the thing. What is normal, what we see growing up, what is normal to us growing up, what we witness in other people, what we see other people doing, becomes our conditioning. Our subconscious mind is grabbing onto all of this stuff from the minute that we become consciously aware to anything around us. We're picking up on these things. And I know that everyone says between the ages of 0 and 7, but it really goes beyond this. That's just they're the years where our brain is the most malleable, where our brain frequency is in a state of literally being programmed and of learning the rules for life, right? But the conditioning goes beyond that. So anything that you ever witnessed as normal, and I want you to really reflect on this. This is going to be homework for you. I want you to really reflect on what you saw as normal and conventional when you were growing up. What did your family do? How much money did they make? What sort of choices did they make? All of that became your conditioning. And so the moment that you then choose to do anything different to what you saw as normal and conventional growing up is straight away an unconventional path. That is how easy it is. And then I want you to take that like one step further and really think, like I said, I can sit and I can justify why I chose pharmacy as a degree. I can logically justify it. But when I think back, like future Jamie, like me now, Jamie, who knows more about this world and this life and our brain and all of those things, right? I can now look back and be like, you can justify that all you want, but there was a calling on your heart and you could feel it. You could feel the calling, and then you went on to logically justify it so that it made sense. So that it felt like the right move because it made sense up here. But the first place it started was actually here. This is where it starts, right? And I can guarantee you that if you look back upon your life and you think about some of those really big pivotal moments, you'll see that it started here. And then you justified it and it became a mind thing, right? So I go to university. I really fucking struggled at university. My university experience was anything but conventional. I shouldn't be where I am now, judging by my university experience. You're getting the inside scoop here. I've literally never shared this anywhere. The only people who know this about me are the people who were with me, my closest best friends and my family. But I really struggled at university. I really, really struggled. I went from being literally a straight A student to all of a sudden failing university. That's right. I failed university not once, but multiple times, multiple subjects. It was big. It was a lot. And when I think back, this was a huge, huge trigger for me to actually start to dive into who I was as a person. And this was actually the beginning of my little journey into personal development and the spiritual realm and tapping into my intuition and having spiritual experiences. It's almost like this really tough time was the trigger for one of my very first spiritual awakenings. And I hate calling it that, but like, that's just what it is. Let's just use that terminology because it's easy to use that terminology. But I struggled so much at university, trying to support myself, trying to work, carrying the financial burden that, most 17-year-olds didn't have. And it was really easy for me at that time to always be looking outside of myself and be like, well, I'm struggling because, I have to do this and, I'm fully supporting myself. I have to work. I don't get like any sort of government support. I don't get help from my parents. I was lucky enough at that stage to be living with an auntie who had a room under her house and I rented that room from her. So I was able to actually afford to live only because of that. And, to only be able to put $20 of fuel in my car per week and things like that, right? And it was really easy for me to look outside of me and be like, well, that's the reason I failed. I'm working so hard. I'm doing all the things. I'm studying. I'm like literally doing everything. But everyone I see around me that are doing really well, they don't have to do what I have to do. They have parents who support them. They live on campus so they don't have to cook or clean for themselves. Like there was always a story. And again, when we go back to what you witness becomes your programming, all I was witnessing was everyone who was different to me. Once again, I was the person who stood out. I was the only one. And obviously I'm not the only one in the whole world who's had to do this. I just want to disclaimer that. But in my eyes, in my experience, I was the only one who had to deal with things the way I had to deal with them. Partway through my degree, I also lost my great-grandparents, both of them within a few months of each other. And this was, again, one of the hardest times of my whole life. My great-grandparents, I grew up across the road from them. And they were so special to me. They were like my parents. We grew up across the road from them. They drove us to school every single day. They picked us up from school every day. We had afternoon tea with them every single day. Whenever my parents went away, we stayed with them. We spent so much time with them. We were so close with them. And then to lose them partway through, I realized that some of my failure was actually a blessing because there was no way that I would have coped with dealing with their loss and trying to juggle everything else, it would have been too much for me. And so there was so much divinity in failing, because it allowed me the space to, number one, go and get a full-time job and to work and to save money, so that as I was going into my final years of my degree, I didn't have to work as much and I had all of that money sitting there, but also the space and the time to grieve without being on someone else's timeline. And so my experience of university was incredibly unconventional. I don't have a story of I went to university and everything was perfect and then I left and I got my dream job and blah, 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 blah. It wasn't like that. I literally failed. My 4-year degree took me 6 years. And so that then brought up a lot of stories. Again, like, this is all relevant, I promise. I know you're probably like, holy moly, Jamie, like you're telling us your whole life story. But I want you to see how important it is when you look back in hindsight. And so we're getting there. That brought up a lot of stories for me. It was like, well, if you failed, like, how are you going to actually, who's going to hire someone who struggled so much? It makes no sense. Who would hire someone as a pharmacist, right? As a pharmacist with literally, I know this is like this is a bit dramatic, but literally people's lives at stake. Literally people's lives at stake. If we make a mistake and someone gets the wrong medication or we miss an interaction, like, there is a lot that goes into what we do. Contrary to popular belief, it's not all about sticking labels on boxes, although there is a lot of that. But all I could think was, who the hell is going to hire a pharmacist that failed university and took 6 years to do a 4-year degree? Well, here is the thing. The beauty of being the person who had to work their way through university is that I, in the workplace, was able to hold myself in a way that nobody would know that I had ever failed. Nobody would know. Because when I was in that job, when I was doing that thing, I knew that I was in the right place. Again, we're coming back to this heart, this feeling, this knowing. And I didn't know what to call it then. I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know about intuition or, like, knowing or believing in yourself or any of that shit. I wasn't that deep into this world, right? I did have a few readings and stuff. I know I said earlier that this is my first experience in personal development. I did have some readings and I did work with people. I saw a psychologist. I did these different things that at that point I didn't recognize were really shaping me and helping me deal with things. Again, it was all very higgledy-piggledy, very chaotic, but still leading from here. Still leading from here, right? And so I got a job very easily. I got a job as an intern, worked in a pharmacy that I was already working in. It was all perfect. And I really shone in that year because the university just wasn't for me, but the workplace was. And it felt so right. And I knew what to do. What I wasn't expecting was that by the end of the year, I realized I didn't just want to be a pharmacist. I didn't just want to be a pharmacist. And my family always laughs at this when I tell these stories because they're like, just a pharmacist, remembering that in my family, what I've done is so incredibly unconventional and it almost put me up on this huge pedestal because, whoa, she was the one who did something different. And she didn't just go to university. She went and became a health professional, an incredibly respected and successful health professional, right? So when I say I never wanted to be just a pharmacist, everyone's like, oh yeah, just a pharmacist. Right? But it is true because I knew that my calling was bigger. And again, I did not have those words. When I finished my intern year, I was like, being a pharmacist this year has been fun, but where I really want to go is into business. I want to own my own pharmacy. I want to manage. I want to be in charge. I want to manage a team and to be in charge of a store and to be out there with customers and to have the whole experience. That is what I want. I couldn't explain it. I didn't work in a pharmacy that was that had the manager doing anything like what I could envision myself doing. It was a very small store. It was a very small team. We worked with 4 of us and I was one of them, right? But this was the vision. And so I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I'm going to take this job again in the middle of nowhere in Queensland. And that's what I'm going to set my sights on. Literally within 6 months of taking that job, my very first job as an actual fully registered pharmacist, I became the manager. Like that. In the most weirdest way. In the most weirdest way. I knew going into that job that it would be, well, I say I knew, it's not actually how it unfolded. When I took that job, my intention was, this is going to be a really great experience. I'm only a pharmacist in charge, so it's like the step between regular pharmacist and manager. I'm a pharmacist in charge. It means that there will be shifts where I will be in charge, and it's going to be great experience, but the people there are lifers. So I'm not just going to be able to take over as a manager. I'm going to have to use this as a year experience or a couple of years experience, and then look for the opportunity that I actually want to be a manager and then move into managing partner. Of course, this isn't how it played out. I got the job. I was there for 6 months. I was promoted to manager in the most unconventional way. In the most unconventional way. The manager didn't leave. He stood down. We worked together. We were really good friends. Everything was good. And then he started to realize that management maybe wasn't for him. And the owners started asking questions. And all of a sudden, there was pressure coming from all of these different pathways. And then one day, literally, I was on a shift. I get a phone call. Jamie, we'd love to offer you the position as a manager. And I was like, what? Like, we've already got a manager. And she's like, nope. He just stood down. And we have known for a long time that you were the right person for the job. And this is like yours if you want it. And so, of course, I said yes. And I remember being like, this is just wild. I literally was the girl who failed university. I literally was the girl who took 6 years to do a 4-year degree. And now I've come out, and within 6 months of actually being a registered pharmacist, I'm managing a store, and a big store. We had a team of about 10. I had other pharmacists that I had to manage. I was, I think, 24 years old in charge of a pharmacy. That's how fucking unconventional it is, right? Led from here. And again, I didn't know it at the time, but it was all following the next right steps. The obvious next thing, the thing that just felt right that I couldn't explain why. And here I was, managing a store. And I could keep these stories going on and on, because it wasn't long after I started managing the store that I was like, right, I can really see that my future lies in ownership. I want to be a managing partner. And so I followed a lot of opportunities from there. I stayed with the same group. They sold stores and I moved with them instead of staying with the store like most people would do. And I had lots of opportunities come up from that. And what's really cool here is that this then becomes the segment of where I went from being almost a managing partner to all of a sudden being exposed to this really beautiful world of online business, of personal development, of holistic health, of holistic mindset. And so I actually turned down multiple opportunities, like I think 3 or 4 in the end, multiple opportunities to buy into pharmacies because it didn't feel right. And if you logically sit with that, you will think that I'm crazy. But if you logically try and make sense of things, you will live a logical life. And so logically, the right move for me to make would have been to jump on one of those opportunities. There were 3, 4 in the end. 4 opportunities to buy into a pharmacy when I said that that's what I wanted. But here, it didn't feel right. And people judged me and questioned me for it. They're like, I don't get it. Like, you literally came in here saying that you wanted to be a managing partner. We're literally giving you the opportunity to get what you want, and you're saying no, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, I can't explain it, but this just doesn't feel right at the moment. And so I'm going to respectfully decline. I'm going to respectfully decline because it doesn't feel right. And when I think back, I realize how courageous that is firstly, because it's really easy to dive into lack and scarcity in those moments. It's really easy to think, well, if I turn this down, what if the opportunity never comes up again? What if I turn this down and the opportunity never, ever arises again? Let me be the evidence for you that the opportunity will rise and rise and rise and rise in different ways, and you don't even know it until you're there. I turned down one opportunity, another one arose. I turned down that opportunity, another one arose. I got this close to buying a pharmacy. Like, I mean it. I got this close to buying a pharmacy. This close. The reason that that one fell through was actually circumstances beyond my control. I didn't turn that one down. I did not turn that one down. But I do remember going and looking at the store and knowing deep within me, it wasn't my store. Knowing deep within me that even though I had been through this whole journey of waiting for the right opportunity, of talking about investment and how much money I needed to have to do this and how I was going to make it happen, and looking at the financials of this store and looking at everything to do with this store, I went and visited the pharmacy and I was like, this isn't mine. And a week later, one of the partners that I was buying in with called me and said, look, Jamie, I'm really sorry, but we've decided to not go ahead with that sale because something was off. And I was like, I know. I felt it. I knew as soon as I went there that it wasn't ours. And that's okay. The opportunity will arise again. And the funny thing is that each time after that it arose, it was the same thing. No, it's not the right time. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right. It doesn't feel right. And then it fell into place. It didn't feel right because even though I was really interested in business, what I wanted the most was freedom. I wanted to be able to travel and to have experiences and to not live my life revolving around my job. And I knew that going in as a managing partner, owning a pharmacy, was going to commit me to that place for a long period of time, and that I wasn't going to get the freedom and the flexibility and the space that I wanted. And so I started to explore things. I was also dealing with a lot of health conditions, a lot of weird stuff going on in my body. And I was led to, out of the blue, again, totally out of the blue, as if something beyond me just dropped this opportunity in front of me. I was introduced to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, an online health coaching certification. I remember reading it and being like, I'm so into this. I love everything that this stands for. It's a holistic approach to health. I feel like I'm not making a difference as a pharmacist anymore. I really want to integrate all of this stuff into the work that I already do. What a beautiful way to do it. And I was like, but what the fuck is a health coach? Like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing here. I've never heard of that before. And I started diving into this and I realized it's not a thing in Australia, but in America, it's really big. And so I think this was actually 2016, before the online space really even took off. And all of a sudden I'm in this health coaching certification and I'm frothing off everything that I learn. Again, it's like, oh, this feels good. This feels so good. I know that I'm in this for a reason. I know that I'm in this for a reason. I had no logical explanation. The people that I told about this and I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I'm learning all this cool stuff and I'm going to be able to bring it into the pharmacy and integrate it into what I'm already doing. And they're like, I just don't see how it's going to work. Like, it doesn't make sense. People don't want that. People aren't paying for that. And I was like, I'm like, trust me, just trust me. Like, this feels so right. I have to follow it. Right. And so that's what I did. And that then snowballed into so many different things. So many different things. You know, when you look back and you can like see those moments that was so pivotal and you can see that like, oh, whoa, you know, things were kind of like flowing and then all of a sudden you made this move and then this and then this and then this and then this happened. That was it. It was kind of like the quantum leap. It accelerated the journey, the time collapse, right? Because that course then led into joining a network marketing team. And I want to really talk about this for a moment because to some people, network marketing in itself is a very unconventional choice. For me, it wasn't, because I'd been exposed to that a lot through my journey of life. My great-grandma actually did Avon. My mum did Tupperware. Like, it wasn't really out of the ordinary for me. But the way that I led myself in that network marketing team, that was very unconventional. And this is where I really started to learn one big thing, one big code, one big key. And that is that when people tell you not to reinvent the wheel, you need to fucking reinvent the wheel. You need to reinvent the wheel, because what they're teaching you when they say don't reinvent the wheel, I've already done the work for you. I've already been on this journey that you're on. They're just teaching you their journey. They're just teaching you their inspired intuitive steps. That's not your journey. Your journey is your journey. When you tap into here, you know the right steps. When you actually listen to yourself, you know the right path to take. When you start to listen to other people, that is when it becomes complicated. That is when the resistance, the fear, the limiting beliefs, all of the shit starts to come up because you're following someone else's journey. When someone tells you, don't reinvent the wheel, I've already done the thing so that you don't have to, I say middle finger them. And I say, tap into here and figure out what your journey is. Because this was my experience, right? I joined network marketing. I'm a good student, so I follow all the rules. And it doesn't really work. And I'm like, I literally did the things that they said for me to do. I literally did all the things that they said. I'm sending the hey girl messages. I'm liking and what do they call it? It was kiss hug. I'm kiss hugging people's posts online. I'm finding new people to follow. I'm making new friends. Nothing is happening in my world. What is going on? And then I was like, when I think about this, it actually doesn't feel good. The truth is that when I think about reaching out to someone and sending a hey girl message, I want to vomit. I actually feel physically sick. I feel heavy here. I don't want to do it. But they said that you had to do it this way. They said that when you reach out to people, that's how it works. That you've just got to go and make friends and find an opportunity to weave this thing into the conversation. And I was like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. It feels manipulative. And they're like, but I don't get it. Like, it's not manipulative. It's from the heart. You're leading from the heart. And I was like, no. For me, leading from the heart is I'm out here doing my thing. And I'm sharing my wisdom. And I'm sharing my knowledge. And I'm sharing my story. And I'm putting things out there. And people are coming to me. And that's how I could always envision it. I never envisioned building this business where I had to go and do all of this shit in order to receive for it. I've always envisioned this business where I just get to show up and I just get to be me, and people love it enough to come into my world, and whether that's in a free experience or whether they want to pay me to work one-on-one or anything in between, I am just showing up. I'm doing the content, I'm posting, I'm creating whatever I want to create, right? And so I started moving from this energy, and people did not like it. Let me tell you, because the whole story of don't reinvent the wheel came up. And I even got told once that, this is a good one, that when it comes to like the whole reaching out thing, that the people who were most committed were always the ones who you reached out to, not the ones who reached out to you. And I was like, that's interesting. Because the way that I got started in this business was by reaching out to someone, because I knew I wanted in, because I was looking for something and this felt like the right vehicle. And so I want you to really think, how do I move? How do I move when I'm doing things? What feels good to me when I'm doing things? And I know I'm talking a lot about like business and career, but this applies to everything. This applies to relationships, to romantic relationships, to friendships. How do I move? How do I reach out to people? What feels good for me? What do I want to attract, and what do I want to call in, and how do I want to receive? When you follow that, things shift and change. Conventional is to look outside of you and to look for the evidence and to look for the ways that someone else told you you have to do things. Conventional is, oh, I want a romantic relationship. I want to deepen my relationship with my partner. I need to go and do all these things. Unconventional is tapping into here first, because we're not taught to do that. Because we're taught so much bullshit at school that most of us will never, ever, ever use. But we're not taught how to tap into ourselves. We're not taught how to tap into our power. We're not taught how to tap into our intuition. And yet, when you lead with that, that is when crazy things will happen in your life. And so in my network marketing career, although it was very short-lived, I actually reached a leadership level. I made it further than most people would. I got promotions and I made a decent amount of money when, again, the general story, the conventional story of network marketing is it doesn't work and it's cringe and people never make money. In fact, they mainly lose money because they have to buy all this stuff and do all these things. My story is not that. My story is when I started leading in the way that I wanted to lead, doing things in a way that actually felt good, to me, that was like, I can see this. I can see how this is going to work because it's in my mind. This is how I can envision it. So this is what I'm going to do. And people call it unconventional. But remember, you normalize what you actualize. We want to normalize living an absolutely crazy unconventional life because for most people, a conventional life is just getting by. It's just making enough to pay the bills, maybe having a holiday once a year, and feeling like you can't keep all of the balls in the air. That's what's been normalized to us. Look outside of you, look at the people around you, look at the people that you see online complaining about things. Living a life where it's like, oh, I get to just go on holidays when I want. My time is my own. I get to have a family. I get to be a really present mom, as well as be a really empowered woman who can stand on her own, independent, right? But I'm in a really deep, loving, connected relationship. Like, it's not normal to have everything. It is not normal to have everything. But why? Because we're not taught to lead from here. Because we're taught to always be looking outside of ourselves and doing something that is supposed to be the thing that's going to get us there. But what we don't realize is that those things that are outside of us are actually just conditioning us even further. And when you're following something that's outside of you, it's never going to lead you to the thing that you want and to being able to have and hold it all, because something in it is always going to be heavy to hold. Something in it is always going to be heavy to hold because it's outside of you, because you've picked the power up, you've taken it from you, and you've put it in something else. And that is not the path to your dream life. That is not the path to you having everything that you desire. It is really easy to sit and preach that you get to have it all in life. And I know that a lot of people stand by this, right? And I believe that. I believe that, and I want to be evidence of that for you, that you actually get to have everything that you want in your life. You do. You get to have it all. What people don't talk about is then how to hold it all when you get it. Because holding it all, when the power is outside of you, feels so fucking heavy. And I can tell you that from experience. Because at the peak of me having everything that I wanted, of getting the amazing pharmacy degree that was paying me $100,000+ a year, of having this amazing side hustle that was actually paying me, and like a really beautiful creative outlet that allowed me this beautiful journey into personal development, and meeting new people and making new friends and doing all these really amazing things, traveling for conferences, like so many amazing things happened, but there was always something that fell down because of it. If it wasn't my health, it was my relationship, or it was my actual in-person friendships. I could not hold everything. It was like, I can have all of the success in this area, but because all of the success is in this area, I'm not gonna be able to hold that. I'm not gonna be able to be healthy and have all of this. I'm gonna really struggle with my health and my weight because I'm doing all of these things over here. Or, my health is going to be okay because I'm like really grueling it out in the gym. And I did go through this phase before my wedding of really being obsessed with my weight and being obsessed with literally weighing every single thing that went into my mouth. I did this reset diet, and we call it the fish diet, because I ate salmon 3 times a day for 2 weeks to reset my fucking body because it wasn't responding the way that we thought it should respond to the diet that I had been put on. And I don't eat salmon. I don't like salmon. I especially don't like it after that experience, but I was doing the thing that I was supposed to do because this was the thing that was going to help. And when I tell you that was at the peak of my career, the peak of me trying to be healthy, right? My relationship was down the toilet, even though I was preparing for our wedding. It was like the conventional thing to do is to have huge success in one area, but for everything else to fall. And people would say, yeah, sure, you can have it all, but not all at once. You can't have career success and a really amazing relationship and be building a family and have a side hustle that lights you up and. You can't do all of that at once. You have one, and then once that starts to when you move through the season of that, then you get something else. And I just don't believe that to be true. I believe that we're conditioned to believe that that's true. I believe that that is the conventional way of thinking, but I don't actually believe it. And the reason that I no longer believe it to be true is because I've proven it otherwise. I can now put my hand on my heart and say that I quite literally have it all. I am self-employed. I have this amazing business that I get to support women and do what I love, and it's my creative outlet, and it truly is my passion project and what I feel like I am here to do. It is so fulfilling getting to show up and to create things like this and to host things and to guide women through these really amazing transformational processes. I am the healthiest I've been in a long time. My skin is the epitome of a reflection of that, right? I grew up having cystic acne and struggling with my skin, struggling with my periods, struggling with my stomach. I don't have any of that anymore. I don't have any of it. I have time freedom. I don't just work. I actually don't work full time. I get days where I can just go and take myself for a massage, go and get my nails done, have these random portal drives that I go on where I just allow myself to be led to the craziest places and the downloads start flowing in and things stream. And that's actually how this whole experience was birthed, in a portal. I literally had this day, it was raining, it was so perfect. And I dropped my son off to daycare. I went and walked on a treadmill at the gym, did a walking meditation, sat in a massage chair, and then I heard it. Get in the car, take yourself for lunch, and then go to the ocean, and then go here and go there. And I just followed it. And I spent this whole day just driving around my city, following these nudges, journaling at each spot, downloading the inspiration. And this is what was birthed from it. If people truly knew the way that I led my life, I don't share this stuff online. I'm about to start sharing it. But I don't share this stuff online because there's been a lot of fear for me around it. There has been so much fear of what if I actually showed my true self. And I said to a mentor recently, I feel like I'm a bit spiritually in the closet. And she's like, that's interesting because the way that I see you, you're not. And she's like, I feel like I'm tapped into a different timeline of yours where I can literally see this version of you who's like out there and proud of your spirituality and your gifts and what you can do. And, you know, there's books and there's this and there's that, and I can see it all for you. And I was like, yeah, I can see that and I can feel it. But there's part of me that feels like I'm still in the closet. And it's because truly to stand there online on my Instagram in person and to tell people exactly what I do and how I lead myself quite literally feels like standing in the street naked. It's incredibly vulnerable. But I said that in this session, I would share that and I would be bearing it all. This is how I actually lead my life. And the reason that I wanted to share this whole like experience, this whole journey to where I am now and the university and all of that is because the theme behind it all is actually leading from here, even though I didn't know it, right? I was always leading from here. I was always leading intuition and knowing first, with a few little things aside, right? There have definitely been times in my journey where I let this get over this, right? I led with my mind and it took me a little bit off the journey, and that's okay, right? And I want you in this moment, if you're feeling any shame for those moments where you're like, oh, yeah, I can see where I led with my heart here, but then I started leading with my head and with my fear and with lack and with scarcity and with stories here. That's okay. That's okay because it was part of the journey. Because sometimes you don't know what alignment feels like until you're out of alignment. Sometimes we just have to experience things in order to know what it feels like, because we weren't taught to feel this way. We weren't taught to lead with feeling, we were taught to lead with our head. But when you can lead from here instead of here, that is when things really, really shift and change. And so that is what my journey has been, leading with here. And when I became consciously aware to that and started intentionally leading with here, because see, before that, it wasn't intentional. It was just natural. It's just what felt good. And then I could like justify it and I could make it logical, but it always started here. And then my brain would take over, right? And so there was nothing intentional about it. It was perfect, but it wasn't intentional. And so when I started intentionally leading from here first, from this space of knowing, trusting, from this space of this is so much bigger than me, this journey is bigger than me, things really started to shift in a way that I honestly can't truly fully explain to you still. And even though I want to be really open with the level of spirituality and like connection and everything that I'm at, there are still things that I have experienced that I do not have words for, that I still can't share because I don't even know how to share it. But the biggest key here is that I intentionally tap into this every day, every single day. Now, what's really easy to do here is to start to go, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to meditate. And they're the ways that I see everyone tapping into this, right? You know, they journal for 3 hours and all of a sudden everything's just poured out into this page of a journal, or they sit in this really deep meditation and all of a sudden like the pages of the book that they're supposed to write has come out, all because of this amazing meditation. And to that I say the power's still outside of them. If you have to do something in order to receive something, you're still not in your power. You're still in conditioning. This was a really big key for me to overcome. To realize that I didn't have to have the perfect circumstances. I didn't have to have perfect silence in order to tap into this wisdom that was beyond me. I didn't have to sit with my journal at 5 a.m. in pure silence of my house while sipping on a cacao. I didn't have to meditate for a whole hour before I could open my channel and receive. I receive because I receive. I receive because it's the way that I choose to lead my life. I don't have to do anything in order to receive. I don't have to do anything in order to receive. This is the way that I lead my life, and it's intentional. It's because I choose that I'm just going to go about my day, and it's co-creation. It's co-creation. I lead, the universe follows. Sometimes the universe leads and I follow. It's this really beautiful dance, is the best way to describe it. It really is a dance. It's like, I want to do this. This feels good. Lead me, right? Really leaning into the feminine. And in other times, I'll receive a download and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And the more that I sit with it, the more that it grows. And the more that I allow it, the more that it grows. And then all of a sudden, this whole new thing has birthed in front of my eyes in a way that I never thought it could. And the way that I used to navigate these things was I would get a download and then I'd sit at my laptop for 5 hours trying to plan it all out and like to plan a whole launch for it and like to piece it all together and to figure out the messaging and to figure out the content and to figure out all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, all the magic from that thing has dissipated and I put it out there and it's a total fucking flop because there's no oomph behind it, because the energy, the frequency, everything has gone because it overcomplicated, because that is not how some of us are supposed to do things. Some of us are supposed to just allow things to happen, to follow our intuitive guidance. This is, again, not just in relation to business. It's really easy for me to talk about this in relation to business. But I tap into this with relationships, with deepening my relationship with my husband, with being connected with my son, with my friendships, with my health, with the way that I eat. You know, a few years ago, intuitive eating was a big thing. And the funny thing about that was everyone was putting out all of these guides on how you intuitively eat, but you can't put out a guide on how you intuitively eat because intuition is you. It's following your heart, right? And so what you need to do, the only thing you need to do is learn to silence the noise and the conditioning around you and tap into this space instead of everything else. What I wanted to share, I was actually watching, I'm just bringing up my notes to like actually make sure that I share the thing. I was watching this movie with my son called Onwards. It's a Disney movie and it's really beautiful. It's about these, like, I don't actually even know what they are. They're not humans. They're some sort of creature. Doesn't really matter. But they spoke about how at the beginning of time, there was always magic in the world, but that the magic was often hard to master. And so in time, people started finding simpler ways. And eventually they forgot that the magic existed entirely. Now, why this is relevant is because as humans, we are this crazy species with amnesia. This comes with a trigger warning because what I'm about to say is going to challenge potentially some people's beliefs, and that's okay. Just lean in, just stay open. You don't have to like take what I say as gospel, but I want to expand your thoughts on this. We're a species with amnesia. All we have are stories that people have shared that explain their opinion on the version of events. This goes by science, this goes by the Bible, evolution, all of that. Yes, you can sit and you can tell me that there's evidence for it, and that's perfect. I'm not arguing with that. But what I'm saying is that as humans, there is literally no one alive that is like, no, I remember this is what happened with absolute certainty. No one remembers, no one knows. We're actually piecing together our creation in hindsight. We're looking for evidence. We're putting the pieces together. The creation of humans on this planet is literally like a gigantic puzzle, right? And we've got some pieces and we're trying to fill in the blanks. And this really reminds me of this movie, right? It's like, we don't know where we came from. We don't know our abilities. There is evidence that, you know, there were civilizations among us that, you know, did totally fucking unconventional things for their lifetime. Look at the pyramids and all the other wonders of the world, where it's like, how did these people who didn't have machinery, who literally did everything by hand, how did they build these things, right? And so when I was watching this movie, I was just in awe of the backstory of, yeah, you know, at some stage there was magic in this world. And when we expose ourselves to the magic that we have within us, of like really being able to tap into this magic that we have within us, we can do really incredible and totally unconventional things. But we've forgotten because the magic is hard to master. Because in order to master the magic of you, of your power, of your intuition, of your magnetism, you have to overcome all of these obstacles outside of you. You have to be able to not care about the judgment. You have to be able to deal with people's projections of their own shit onto you. You have to be able to deal with naysayers and people who are like, I don't know what you're into, but I am not into that. And it is weird. And I've literally had people who are like, anything that's not God is the devil. You know, we're in this world where if you don't fit into one person's like cut of what's acceptable, you are outcast. And that's not how it's supposed to be. You know, we're actually all one. We're actually all connected. And we have this greater consciousness that actually connects us all, but we're too busy trying to divide ourselves. And sometimes I think that this whole online space of personal development and mindset and even health and wellness, like all of that actually segregates us even more, because everyone's out there being like, my stuff is better than yours and this is wrong and that's wrong and my stuff is the only thing that matters. And that's just not the point. The point is that we all actually have a part to play in guiding people back to their magic. It's not about you becoming another version of you. It's about becoming all of you. All of you, loving all the parts of you, choosing you, knowing that you were chosen to come here in this lifetime for a reason. And that reason doesn't have to be to create this big business empire. For some of us, the reason is different. And that's perfect, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that we lead with our magic first. And so the whole story goes on in this movie about how we had magic and then we found a different way because magic was too hard to master. And then all of a sudden, now we're coming back to magic, right? And so the main character goes through this whole journey of like finding the magic again. And there are pieces that he pulls together. And when I was listening to it, I was like, it's just literally the epitome of life. The pieces were, and I've got my notes, for any spell to work. Now, I want to say, like, when we talk about magic and we talk about spells, there's a lot of people who are like, your words are your spells. And I truly believe that. I don't believe spells is like you have to be a witch and it's like hocus pocus, bloody blah, right? We don't need a magic wand. We are magic. And our words, the things that we say, we speak into existence. Now, there is a lot more to it than that. It's not just I say I'm going to be a millionaire and then all of a sudden one day, poof, I'm a millionaire. There are other things that go along with it. We have to look at belief systems. We have to look at old identities. We have to look at all this stuff, the conditioning, the judgment, the projections, like all of the things that can take us out of our power. You can sit and say, I'm going to be a millionaire. And if you're in your power and you truly believe it and you just know that it's inevitable and you just follow the next right steps, then yes, you'll be a millionaire. But it's what I'm saying is it's not like hocus pocus. I'm a millionaire and I wave my wand and poof, it happens, right? We know this. But for any spell to work, you must, and it builds up over the course of like experiences that the main character has. Number one, speak from your heart's fire. Speak from here. It's not just going and being like, I want this, magic this, right? It's speaking from the deepest levels of wisdom. The next one is trust yourself. You have to trust the things that are coming through. I really believe, I used to always say that the key to success, the key to having it all was just like believing that you can. I actually don't believe that anymore. Because I think belief is one thing. It's actually trust. You have to be able to trust yourself when it doesn't look like there is a reason to trust yourself. Belief will waver. There are very few people who will literally put their hands up and say, my belief never wavers. My belief never wavers. And that's okay. Because wavering belief isn't the be all end all. The truth is that your belief probably will waver because as you're pushing against edges, it's going to bring up stories. And so it's going to cause your belief in yourself to waver, right? That's how our brain is trained to work, is you want to do something new. You want to do something else, bigger than what you've experienced before. It is normal for your subconscious to pop up and be like, oh, I don't think we can do that. I don't know about that. I don't think we were built to do that. I don't think we were meant to do that, right? That's what our subconscious is for. So your belief will waver and that's okay. What you need to be able to anchor into in those moments of wavering belief is this trust within yourself. The deepest trust within yourself. That is what will push you through those periods of waver. You can waver, but if you trust yourself, you will know that regardless, you will get through this unscathed. And then the final thing was, of course, belief. And even though I just gave you a whole spiel on why belief wasn't the be all end all, the three together, so speak from your heart's fire, trust yourself, and believe, that's the key to tapping into all of the magic that we have within us. And it is perfect. It is absolutely perfect. And I think that these stories are literally out there in front of our eyes and we ignore them because we think that they're just Disney stories. We think they're just movies to make children feel good. But if you go back and you watch them with like intention and purpose and knowing that there's different layers, you'll start to see that number one, the universe is always communicating with us. The universe is always communicating with us. And when you start to open your eyes and to see it for what it is and to hear it for what it is, you will be able to tap into this. This is what I'm talking about. When I say like I started to tap into this intentionally, I started to see all of the ways that I was like in communication every single day with the universe. Every single day in the most craziest ways. And I want to share this because I think it's really important. Like, we think that it's just a thought that comes into our head. Might be just a thought. I always used to think that when I was like connecting with guides or spirit team or like whatever, right, that it would sound different, that I'd hear a different voice. But it's my head, so it's my voice. And it actually reminds me of this part of the Harry Potter series where it's when Harry dies, right? And he goes to it's like, I guess, a train station, but it's all kind of like white and cloudy. And he sees Dumbledore and he's like, "But sir, is this real or is it happening inside my head?" And Dumbledore says, "Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. That doesn't make it any less real." And I was like, oh my gosh. Right? Of course it's happening inside your head. That doesn't make it any less real. You're so busy questioning the things that are divinely coming through to you, trying to make logical sense of it when you don't need to make logical sense of it. If you silence that noise and you drop into this energy, you will know that is a message meant for you. And so as I get around my day, I see these things and I just know. It's not like I see a sign and I'm like, oh, that says something motivational. That's a sign from the universe. It's not like that. I can see a million signs. I can see a million quotes. I can see t-shirts with inspirational sayings. Like, I can see all of these things and none of it means anything. And then I'll see one thing and I'm like, oh, that's for me. That is for me. And I know that that's for me because when I silence this, it's here. It's unknowing. Right? You can listen to song lyrics. You can watch movies. The universe is always trying to communicate with us. Always trying to communicate with us. And the greatest story that I actually love about this is The Wizard of Oz. I've always loved that movie. And it wasn't until last year that I was like, this is a metaphor for something so big. You know, if you don't know the story, Dorothy ends up in a house inside a tornado and she lands in this place called Oz. And when she lands there, she kills a witch who has these magic ruby slippers. And so the ruby slippers end up with her and she sets out on this journey to the Wizard of Oz to help her get home. And of course, along the journey, like, there's different things that happen along the way. And the whole story is about her getting to Oz to get to the wizard who is going to be able to help her get home back to wherever she's from, which I forget. I should know. But anyway. So she goes on this journey and she gets to the wizard and he's like, "I've got nothing in this bag to give you. I can't actually help you get home." And obviously she's all upset and she doesn't get it and all the rest of it, right? And then finally the good witch comes back and is like, all you have to do is tap your ruby slippers together and say, "There's no place like home." And it's like, what? And they're like, "But she's been wearing them the whole time." And the witch, the good witch, Glenda, says to her, she's like, yes, she's had the magic all along, but she had to see it for herself. And this is what I think we miss. Not what I think. This is why I know we miss. We have this magic with us all along. We just can't see it at play. We're not intentionally tapping into it. In hindsight, just like I've taken you on the journey today, in hindsight, we can look back and we can be like, yeah, you know, I can see that I was always leading from this beautiful heart space, but in the moment, it felt like logic. We have the magic with us. We just don't know how to tap into it. We don't see it for ourselves because we're so busy trying to see ourselves as some other version that we've been told we have to be in order to have all the things that we want. But actually, it's all with us all along. It's not about becoming a different version of us. It's about allowing ourselves to actually be who the fuck we are. And if you're here, still listening, still involved in this, it's because you are an unconventional woman. You are not here to follow things the way that everyone else did it, and that's perfect. Now we need to get you back into your magic, leading with this magic. Leading with this magic first. And this is how I choose to lead my life. Every single day, unconditionally, tapping into this wisdom beyond me. Sometimes I call it superconscious. Sometimes I say higher self. Sometimes I say intuition. Sometimes I say guides. Sometimes I go further than that and I talk about extraterrestrial energy. That is a whole can of worms that I'm still exploring. But at the end of the day, the number one thing that's been really made abundantly clear to me when I tap into this is that it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you call it. None of that matters. And it doesn't matter if one day you feel like you're tapped into one thing and then the next day it feels like something else and it grows and it evolves and it changes over time. None of that matters. What matters is that you're doing it. What matters is that you're deepening this connection to yourself. Because this is what allows you to then go further with it. When I say that I've had crazy experiences with this, believe me, it is not an easy journey sometimes, because the more that you start to uncover about yourself, about the world, guides, spirits, all of the beautiful things, your intuition, right, the universe, the more that you realize that we really don't know as much as we think we know. And also, it doesn't really matter because we can just lead ourselves and nothing else actually matters outside of what we believe is true for ourselves. And that's a really big code to let land. And none of it really matters. Just how you lead yourself and how you choose to navigate your life and how you choose to navigate the things that come up for you. But a lot of crazy things have happened. I've definitely deepened this feeling. Like my channel opens very easily and I receive downloads and wisdom and I hear a lot. But then I also have deepened this feeling, this different feelings of, I know I'm not alone. I know someone's with me. I know this, I know that. I know to trust this. I know to move here. Like things that I can't explain. But probably the craziest experience I've had, this one felt like a lot, was actually waking up in the middle of the night and feeling like my whole body was vibrating, like actually vibrating. And I remember being like, stop, stop. I don't want to do this. And all of a sudden it stopped and I lay there awake for a bit. I was like, what the fuck was that? Like what actually just happened? I don't know. I spoke to a spiritual mentor and she's like, yep, that's happened to me before. It's like energetic upgrades, rah, rah, rah. It's perfectly safe, but you're always in control. And this is the biggest misconception. This world is scary. I was always scared of tapping into my intuition, scared of tapping into, my guides, wisdom source, like whatever you want to call it, right? Scared because of the stories that I'd been told. And you think about societal conditioning. What are horror movies about? Scary ghosts, right? Ouija boards, all of these things. Now, I'm not saying that people's experiences with that are not true. They are true for them, but it all comes down to what you believe at the core is true for you. And I simply don't believe that those negative experiences are true for me, and I've never experienced them. I haven't experienced them because I don't believe that they're true for me. We have to look at our conditioning. We have to look at the way that we're wired to see things and start to question it. Why would we want to be scared of tapping into wisdom and power beyond us? And the truth comes down to one thing, that we are actually not scared of failure. But what we're actually scared of is how powerful we actually are. And this is where I want to finish off for today. Because what I want to say is that embarking on this journey of being unconventional, of living in your power, of living in your magnetism, of living in a co-creation, it actually can trigger really big things within you. And it can be scary. And it can bring up a lot of untruths. And so that is what day 2 is all about. Today, I wanted to really activate you to show you what's possible, to just share the wisdom. And that's really what this is. It's wisdom. It's wisdom. I don't have, I've got a few notes on my phone, but I don't have a slideshow. I don't have information. I don't have like knowledge to give you. This is all wisdom and stories that is designed to quite literally speak to your subconscious mind and to the parts of you who already know that this is all truth for you, and to activate those parts to start to open you up to see the different possibilities for yourself, right? And so what's going to happen now is, as these parts start to come online a bit more and they start to speak up a bit more, you're going to start to notice like these pieces of resistance to them, this fear around it, this fear of your light, this fear of being so fucking powerful beyond measure. And for some people, it's even the fear of, holy shit, what if I get everything I want? This is the deepest thing that I've had to navigate in my whole entire journey. I used to think it was people pleasing and perfectionism and all this shit, right? And worthiness. Now I realize my deepest fear, the biggest thing that I've been battling along the journey, everything else was just a distraction to keep me away from addressing the fear that's actually the thing. And that is fear of my own power. Fear of my own power. And I am in the deepest transformation right now, deconstructing this so that I can be evidence for you to expand you into what is truly possible for you when you tap into this. But it is a big journey. And so I want to support you on that. And day 2 is going to be all around that. Day 2, we're going to really dive into the untruths and the stories and the things that come up when you start to tap into this world. So if you have any resistance, anything that pops up over the next 24 hours of listening to this, I want you to just write it down. Just make notes. Don't question it. Don't make it mean anything. Don't attach yourself to it. I just want you to notice what starts to come up, write it down, and bring it to the call tomorrow. We are going to be cleaning all of that up. I'm going to literally guide you through a superconscious breakthrough session. We're going to clean up all of those stories, clean up all the leaky energy, and really bring these parts of you all online to deepen the way that you can connect to this wisdom, to yourself, and continue to lead unconventionally, because this is the path forward. This is the journey. Buckle up, because when you really start to put this into action in your life and lead your life this way, you will collapse so much time. Like, things just start to shift and change and evolve in the most perfect ways. So I have one final piece of homework that I want you to really think about, and that is that I want you to reflect on your own journey. So I've shared so much of my journey with you today, and I just want to acknowledge that it probably felt a little bit chaotic. This is very much a live transmission. I've actually never done a training like this before, where I didn't have like hardcore notes and like slides and things to share with you. We've just gone full into channel mode, and we've gone all over the place. You potentially feel like you're in a little bit of like a whirlwind. That is okay. As the things start to settle, I want you to start to reflect on your own journey and see how actually divine each moment was, and see how you actually led so much with your heart, even in moments that it felt like you were leading with your head. And if there were moments where you're like, oh no, I was definitely leading with my head there and my heart was saying something different, I want you to acknowledge those as well. We're acknowledging it all because the journey was so divine. And I know, again, it's so fucking cliche to say that, but the journey really is the journey for a reason. Like I said earlier, sometimes you have to go off path in order to know what alignment and what feels right and what it actually feels right feels like to be on that path and on that journey. If you're not off the path, how do you know what the path feels like? You know? And we pick up wisdom and knowledge and pieces of the puzzle by going off the path. And when you think about it that way, it's kind of like, well, nothing's ever off the path. It's always on the path, and the path is perfect. But you can't see that until you're at the other end. When you're in it, you're like, holy shit, like I feel like I fucked up again. I invested in the wrong thing. I ate the wrong thing. I'm always doing these things that are wrong, right? They're not wrong. They're actually divine. And I want you to really reflect on your own journey. Share it in the Telegram broadcast. I'll pop the link for the Telegram broadcast below this video in case you have not seen that. There's quite a few people who have not joined the Telegram broadcast. You want to be there because that is where we're going to really continue to deepen this. So today I want you to really reflect on your journey, reflect on where you've led with heart, reflect on where you've led with head, reflect on how divine it really all has been when you sit in hindsight. It's like the whole butterfly effect trend that, I don't know if you've seen that on social media, where people are like, my butterfly effect was that if this never happened, then this would never have happened. We're really getting deep into that, right? How divine is your journey? I want you to share that in the Telegram. Share any wisdom, anything that's like really landed for you. And I am so excited for tomorrow's session. We're going to really clean all of this up and then go into our beautiful 7 days together, deepening this work and really putting it into practice.